Welcome to the Leadership Unveiled, a podcast series that explores the minds and journeys of the pioneering leaders, entrepreneurs shaping up the business world. I'm your host, Neha Jagnani, and today's conversation focuses on finance not as a support function, but as a force that actively shapes the future of enterprises. And today's guest represents a rare blend of strategic finance leadership, transformation driven thinking, and value focused execution. Joining us today is Mr. Brijesh Modi. Brijesh is the CFO and strategic finance leader with over 26 years of experience in P&L leadership, M&A, governance, crisis management, and digital transformation across listed companies, global MNCs, and PE-backed enterprises. Skilled at translating complex financial data into strategic direction and positioning finance as a driver of growth and value creation. He has led financial turnarounds, delivering multifold profitability, executed strategic M&A integration, optimized cash flow, and strengthened governance framework to ensure resilience during market disruptions. His expertise spans treasury and capital efficiency, KPI-based governance, M&A execution, and compliance. He is recognized among India's top 100 CFOs by CIMA and amongst 2025 top 25 transformative CFOs by HRAI. Brijesh is trusted as a board and investor partner for value creation and strategic foresight. His leadership vision is clear. Finance should not just track performance, it should shape the future of the business. Brijesh, thank you so much for joining. It's a pleasure having you.
Thank you, Neha, and thank you, HRAI, for hosting me. It's my honor, and I'm privileged to share my thoughts on the finance leadership and the future which is shaping up the new finance function. And yeah, I'm so glad. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Brijesh. Looking forward to this exciting podcast. So, to begin with, Brijesh, you have worked across listed companies and global MNCs. I want to know, how does the role of CFO, change when the business move from steady growth to transformation or turnaround?
Yeah, very interesting question. Thanks for asking that. Actually, the role of a CFO under two environments is quite different. One, I would say in a steady environment, the role is similar to a guardian or a keeper, housekeeper kind of a thing versus the transformation environment where the CFO has to be like a warrior. And I will give you some examples. Under a steady environment, it's more of a business as usual. You are taking decisions on capital allocation, you are managing the costs, you are managing, monitoring the costs. Basically, you are making sure that the health and hygiene of the business is protected, the health and hygiene of the financial statements are protected. It's like a more of a process adherences, whether the risk management processes are being followed or not. That's under a steady environment because the business is moving. There is a decent growth which is happening. Things are on autopilot mode, and in which case you are just like a protector, or you are just like a housekeeper or a guardian where you just look after everything, whether it is happening as per the applicable processes and rules and regulations.
Right.
However, when it's a transformation or a turnaround, it's exactly the opposite. In this environment, the CFO has to be courageous. CFO has to win trust of a lot of stakeholders. This process of transformation and turnaround involves a lot of stakeholder management. It requires a revamping of a lot of existing processes. It involves a lot of unlearning. It involves a lot of hard decisions, and the hard decisions may be in the areas of cost. It may be in the areas of cash. It is like more of a business partnering with the business stakeholders and suggesting them what actions they have to take in transformation and in turnaround. Many times, either you shut something, or you change the course, or you bring something new. And it can be a new acquisition, it can be shutting the loss-making divisions, it can be loss-making branches, it may be as tough as some of the decisions related to people and the productivity management. So one has to be extremely courageous, and each day is different from the previous day because the situations cannot be predicted. Transformation, that's the interesting journey. So I would say, yeah, these are the typical differences that I have witnessed in the steady organization versus transformative organizations.
Sure, sure. Beautifully put. So under steady, you said it's more like a guardian and housekeeper, more adherence to process, risk management, and you are basically in an autopilot mode. When it comes to transformation, it's more about being courageous with your decisions, revamping processes, unlearning, and business partnering becomes key. So thank you so much,
Right.
Brijesh. My next question is, you believe finance should shape the future of business. So, can you share an instance where finance actually played a decisive role in driving strategic, influence rather than just reporting the outcome?
Right. So thanks for this question. Again, a lot to share, and I was so privileged that I had the opportunity to work in an organization where I had to play a role which is beyond the number work or beyond the the gatekeeper, and I was able to contribute to the overall growth and turnaround story. And I'm talking about Kioni, India, when I joined them as a CFO in the year 2012. The first day when I joined, some representative from the parent company in Switzerland told me that if you all do not change or do a turnaround, then we don't know what is going to the future, and that was happening to me in the first third hour of I joining that company, and I realized that there is a massive transformation which is needed, and I have to step out from my traditional CFO role and do something new. So we had multiple businesses. What we did was I took an active role in making sure that the loss-making units or loss-making divisions are shut. If they are not, if we don't, if we did not see any opportunity for them to turn around, then we actually shut them. We had a small training academy which we sold out because it was not adding any value in it, and that was not the core at that point in time. We had a lot of loss-making stores which we had to shut. We actually changed the positioning of various stores. We moved from areas which were low footfall areas to a high footfall area. So these are the things where I played a very active role, and administration function was also with me, and it helped me to kind of assure that all those changes are possible. Also, we introduce a risk management and the governance practices, because while the growth is what we were chasing, but it was important that we also look at the risk management and the governance. So I started this whole risk management committee in the company, where on a monthly basis we started reviewing various challenges and the risks that the company has. So one side we were focusing on growth, and the second side of the coin, I would say, is the risk management. So both the sides were being looked at in parallel. We also changed some of the practices which were which were no more relevant, and made it little robust so that it enables the growth. Some of the practices were stopped. We worked very heavily on the process enhancement, documentation, health and hygiene of the balance sheet. And happy to say that when I joined that company, it was a loss-making company, and when I moved away to a different role within the same group, it was a profitable entity. So I would say that I had to step away from the traditional role and really I work with the managing director, I work with the business heads, spending a lot of time with them, understanding their dreams, and supporting and driving with them all the necessary changes.
Sure, sure. Very inspiring example, Brijesh. And I must say that at the time of transformation or turnaround, you are bound to make the decisions which are difficult. And that needs a lot of courage and, warrior mindset, as you rightly said earlier. So thank you so much for sharing that example. My next question, Brijesh, is during crisis and market disruptions, what are the first financial priorities you focus on to ensure resilience and continuity?
So, I would say there are these three C's, I would say, which are relevant at the time of crisis management. One is the cash management, and which is nothing but the cash flow management. Second is the cost management, and the third thing is the compliance management. So, what I mean is that in case of a crisis, like how we do in our personal lives also, right? Whenever you have any challenge, you first look at how much is the fund available, emergency fund which is available, and with that fund how much is my leeway, how many months I can survive. So in organizations also, it is like that how much is the cash balance that you have, what are your immediate short-term commitments, what are your receivables, what are your payables, and what is the leeway that you have with the current balance, and how do you make sure that you maximize the cash balance in the because at that time the cash balance becomes like an oxygen to run the company. Second is the cost management. Obviously, in case of a crisis, one is to really relook at the cost base, like a zero-based budgeting, and one is to challenge each and every item whether we need it at this point in time or not. And it's more like a crunching. And then yes, if we progress further, if the growth comes, then we can always relook at having that cost again. But the cost reduction is a second important item, and the third is the compliance. And I pay a special attention to this because what happens is that when you are in a crisis, your day-to-day discussions are quite different because you are on a survival mode, you are on a cash cost. There is a chance that you may just compromise on the compliances with statutory bodies, compliance within the system. I think it's important that one pays attention to compliance. So I would say these are the three things which are very, very essential, and it should be activated immediately moment a crisis strikes. And also, in addition to these three C's, how do you see the opportunity for growth? And when the crisis comes, it comes with its own opportunities. We all know COVID, what we went through, and including the travel industry. So
Yeah.
it brought in its own opportunities. So one has to be open during the crisis. It's very hard, easier said than done, but be open for identifying opportunities also.
Sure, sure. So there is cash management flow that works as an oxygen in the survival mode situation. Then there is cost management and followed by compliance management, which becomes the key. Also, last but not the least, you got to look for the opportunities to grow and
Absolutely.
have something sustainable because it's a dynamic world and things keep changing. So it becomes handy. So thank you so much, Brijesh. My next question for you is from your experience in M&A, what are the most common pitfalls that leaders face during post-merger integration, and how can finance help avoid them?
So usually two things that I have seen as two major challenges. Number one, culture misfit or a cultural differences, rather I would say. And the second is the synergy not happening. The original M&A is typically done with the intention of synergies of people, synergies of process, resources, cost, profitability, etc. But in many situations, I have seen these two things failing. So I think to way to deal with it is that since finance has this capability of measurement and bring a lot of objectivity to the whole process. So cultural difference may be different. So for example, some company might be looking at the profitability, or a growth in a particular manner. Their value systems might be different. Their processes might be different. For what is important for one company may not be that important to the other company. And in such differences, I think arriving at a common ground, having some sort of a standardized formats which helps because then everybody is seeing a matter with the same perspective rather than two different perspectives. So that's one way to look at the culture differences. Second, in terms of the synergy, I think having a tight control on various initiatives which will bring the synergy, having periodic meetings, status updates, and a very objective analysis of what is not working on every initiatives pertaining to synergy is where finance can draw attention to all the stakeholders, and this is how a difference can be made, and M&A can be a successful.
Sure. So two major pitfalls. One is the synergy mismatch and the cultural differences.
Absolutely.
And both can be, taken care of if you come to a common ground. And secondly, if there is a tight control, periodic meetings, status update, and objective analysis of the situation. So this brings us to the last question of this segment, Brijesh, which is looking ahead, what skills and mindsets will differentiate high impact finance leaders in the next 5 years?
Right. The we are in a truly VUCA world, and we really do not know what is going to happen tomorrow. The ongoing activism by the regulatory, the ongoing geopolitical situations, which may include foreign exchange fluctuation, the risks and etc. I think it's a highly volatile world. that we are currently seeing. But what is important in this highly volatile world is to remain focused. Finance organization or finance division has its own role of a gatekeeper or a custodian of the books of account. What happens is many times people get carried away and they feel this is the only objective that they have. But in years to come, one has to be still serious about the basic custodian role and use technology, use tools to make sure that this becomes like a business as usual. You don't spend much time on being a custodian. All your MIS, all your controls, all your processes, etc., are tech driven. Use AI. AI is currently the form of technology. Tomorrow, AI may get replaced with something else. But technology, fundamentally, it's a technology. Use technology to manage your day to day and keep yourself free. If you yourself are so busy in managing your day to day mundane things, you will not get find you will not find time to do a business partnering or a partnering with the business in their growth. So to sum up, essentially use technology to automate your day-to-day task, be free, and invest with businesses, partner with them in their growth, understand from them what is their next 5 year vision and how can finance start working on that vision. So I think that's the way it is. The custodian role is not going to go away, but at the same time, the dominance of business partnering is going to be very, very important in years to come.
Sure, sure. Great pieces of advice, Brijesh. Beautifully put. Now it's time to switch gears and we'll move to this quick rapid fire round. The objective is to, get to know you a little better in a quick rapid fire Q&A. So are you ready?
Yes, sure.
Okay. So let's begin. One report you never miss reviewing.
Cash and bank balance at the end of the day.
Okay. One skill every CFO must have.
Storytelling.
Okay. Growth or profitability.
Growth.
One lesson your career taught you early.
Do the right things because eventually the truth will prevail. So always do the right thing.
Okay. One tough decision CFO often face.
Being unpopular, not agreeing to the popular requirements and being driven by the data and being driven by the objectivity.
Sure, sure. One habit that makes a strong finance leader.
Be transparent, be open, be a mirror. You don't have to worry about anything. I think over a period of time, people actually respect you if you are transparent and straightforward. Be a messenger of bad news first. I know the world doesn't like bad news to be heard, but over a period of time, if you do that, good news will find its place. But bad news, people need finance. People need the objective way of communicating. So be transparent.
Sure. One mistake finance teams should avoid.
Trying to please everybody. You are not as they say that, you are not a seller of ice cream, so that you can't please everybody. If you want to please everybody, be an ice cream seller. So, but in finance, you can't please everybody. You have to go by the applicable rules, regulation, and obviously balance it with the business partnering.
Sure, sure. One trend changing the finance role today.
I think the finance is becoming more like a catalyst. The presence of finance is to make a lot of difference because they are viewing the whole organization with the eyes of a number, and numbers are typically a very objective. There is no subjectivity, and that gives them the lot of insight and understanding of what's happening across all the units and businesses. So the role of finance is becoming more of a catalyst to make a lot of difference across.
Sure. One piece of advice for young finance professionals.
Be innovative, be original, and the world requires a lot of new creation. So keep on innovating. It may be a very small step. It may be a small process that you want to innovate. It may be just a innovation in doing the things faster. It may be just a small innovation of approaching the business or communicating better. But just keep on innovating.
Sure. Last one. Finance in one word.
It's oxygen.
Oxygen.
Oxygen across. If you see, personal life, finance is oxygen. And if you look at organization life, it's oxygen because you breathe the oxygen, you can't see it. many times finance, the presence of finance is not felt, and they are viewed as a troublemaker, but etc. But I think it's a oxygen which keeps everybody awake, and it can be a department within the organization, or it can be just the finance as a money part of it.
Sure, sure. Thank you, Brijesh. This brings us to the end of this podcast. And on behalf of HRAI, I thank you for your sharing your perspectives and experiences so candidly. I think your clarity on finance as a driver of business has added immense value to this conversation. And it was personally my honor to host this podcast with you today.
Thank you so much, Neha, and thank you, HRAI. It was my pleasure. Really enjoyed answering all the questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Brijesh. Looking forward to more such conversations ahead.
Yeah,
Thank
same
you.
here. Thank you.